Hey, so I have just finished testing my first round with the X27s. They're 28 inches from the center of my nock to the end of the arrow, and I'm running a 225 grain point. That's what Jesse Broadwater recommended from his points. And the 3-fletch 375 vanes with the right helical on a Bitzenberger jig, and the tack wraps, of course. Biter nock, the Hunter 19.2 with the right nock fit. That's the whole build. So what I found is I shot a 323X. You'll see that picture here. And with that 300, I had a ton of low misses. I felt like I had some shots where I was aiming in the middle, I executed, and I didn't hold strong enough and long enough in the X for the arrow to actually hit behind the pin. It would dive bomb. So this is because I usually run a lighter point. I don't usually run over 200 grains at my arrow length. I usually run like a 27 to 25.5 inch arrow. I ran as short as 24.5 at my draw length. I have a 27.5 inch draw length. And I really think that I should make this point less. So I went to Easton's FOC calculator. As you can see here, I measured my arrow length from the nock end to the end of the shaft. Got 28 inches exactly. Then 28 and a quarter for the balance point. And then it calculated my FOC. So 15.2%. Not good. What is recommended? 9 to 11%. On Easton's website for target arrows is usually the recommended range. No wonders I'm dive bombing with these. I remember when I shot my first ever 30X Vegas game. It was like October of 2022. And what I did was I was shooting 23s and I had a 120 grain point and they were 25.5 inches. And the FOC was like 9 to 10%. It was like 9%. And I remembered that. I was like, wow, these aren't dive bombing or anything. They're hitting right behind the pin. They're getting to the target very fast. If my pin is moving kind of down and saggy and I'm not holding as well, it'll still fly out of the bow fast enough to hit an X. The goal was not to have a heavy arrow. The goal is to have a forgiving setup that hits X's, not 10s. This will hit a 10 all day long. This setup will hit 10s. I shot a 300 with it pretty easily. However, I'm not trying to hit 10s. I'm trying to shoot X's. Completely different game. It's more about the bow and your form and being able to get away with laziness and having a really good hold in the middle, a decent hold in the middle that you can sustain for 30 X's, 20 for 30 X's, for 60X games, for 90, even 120. So what I want to do is find a point weight that gets me within 9 to 11% with the X27, and then potentially a setup that gets me within that range on a carbon arrow, which has a little bit lighter shaft. The reason I'm using Easton's calculator right now is because for whatever reason I couldn't find this arrow inside of Archer's Advantage to compute the data. So we'll figure that out as we go. So let's try a different point weight. It doesn't even have point weight. That's kind of dumb. Okay. I need to find the point weight calculator. I'll be right back. Okay, so shout out to Gold Tip for their FOC calculator. I have used this before. I'm going to go ahead and put my stuff in now. So my point weight currently is 225 grains. My shaft weight is 11.3. The length of the shaft is wrap weight. I really don't know. That's a great question. Let's find that. Okay, so we have the eye wraps. They are 11 grains. I cut some of my wrap off, maybe about 4.5 inches. Okay, so which of these wraps is about 4.5 inches? Okay, so the size B, yeah, it's going to be a lot heavier than that. So 4.5 inches is where it is now. It should be about, how long is the actual vein, the original? 5.5. Okay, so I cut an inch off. So let's do the quick math on that. So 82% of the vein, I have 82% of the wrap, so 82% of the weight is what? So 0.82 of 11 grains. So I have a 9 grain wrap, 9.02. So wrap weight is 9.02. The length is 4.5. The vein weight per each, 7.6. The vein length is 3.75. I have 3 veins. My bushing weight and my knock weight. Okay, I'm gonna have to go to an older arrow in here. 10.9. That makes sense. 10.9, 19. Calculate. Don't click the clear button. Okay, awesome. So I've done everything for my arrows. As you can see, the FOC is outside of that 9 to 11% range. It's about 13%. Now we're going to change one variable at a time to get this right. So the variable I want to change is my point weight. That'd be the easiest thing. If I make the arrow shorter, it's just going to get more front heavy, and we don't want that. So yeah, let's go ahead and go 200 because I have that laying around. It's still on that heavy side. I knew it would be kind of on the heavy side. So without me even putting effort in to change these to 200, I'm not even going to try the 200s because it's going to be outside of that recommended range. So 200, 175s. I was thinking 175 would be pretty good. 9.7. Now that's pretty good. It's not bad. Now, yeah, let's try that. That's in a really good range, so I'm going to go ahead and get this taken care of. Okay, so I just got that figured out. Been talking to some friends of mine, and I'm going to try 120 grain points in both the Super Drives and the X27s. One of the things I found, like I want to do a lot of practicing and training at the moment, but it's really hard to train knowing that your setup is not where it needs to be, if that makes sense. So I'm probably going to wait until I get the points in, a couple of days at most. You know, I'll pay for the fast shipping, that sort of thing. So yeah, that's super important. It's very, very important for you to only practice, generally speaking, with what you know works. So you're not trying any harder than you really need to hit your goal. So for me, I'm trying to shoot 30Xs very consistently. Not going to happen with these right now. Way too heavy. So 175, I'll probably get some just to try. 120 grains would make sense. Like I said, my first ever 30X round, I shot with 23s, shooting 120 grain point. Just the speed of it getting out of the bow and into the target mattered more. A lot of guys, too, they think spine matters with this. I think point weight matters so much more for the forgiveness of your shot, grouping-wise. A heavy point is going to hit low. A light point is going to hit kind of high. So, like 100 grains, I've tried that in a 27, and shot okay, but kind of high on some of the misses. So 120, 130 is solid. 140 is kind of tailing off, I think. 150 is okay. It still kind of hits low, and then I know 175 would probably hit low. Knowing this information, definitely want to take action on that. But at the same time, you can't knock it until you try it, because sometimes you don't know. You can't always rely on previous experience. So let's just say I change this to a 9 grain arrow with the same specs, generally speaking, I calculated. So if this is a 9 grain arrow, if this is a super drive, it'd be at 11%. with a 175 grain point. So if I made that the 150s, which I do have right now, and will potentially build 9.1. And that's with the wrap. So if I took the wrap off, because I could potentially build these without the wrap, 10%. Yeah, it's more front heavy without the wrap. So I'm at 10% with a 150 grain point. If I drop this down to a 120, am I above 9? I'm at 7. So like, it's kind of not enough. So 130s, okay, not enough. 140s, probably be like right where I need to be, like that beginning of 9. Yeah, 9%. I really like 9%. So my arrow build, I'm going to write this down. My arrow build that I would want, and this is at this arrow length, assuming I keep the same arrow length. I could always go a little shorter. So at a 27, just over 27.25 shaft length for the X27 and the Super Drive 27, I want to run 140 grain point. And then for the X27, no more than a 175 grain point. Those are my max point weight. So the 9% range, and then my 10, let's do 10% and 11%. Because you never know, you might find one that works better, right? So without a wrap, my 9% range is 140 grain point. And then if I go to 150s, I'm at 10%. Literally 10 grains moved 1%. So if I go to 160, I assume I'll be at the end of the spectrum there. Yeah. I've talked to Jimmy Lutz. He's ran 160s in his points. So that FOC is super important. I feel like FOC is probably... it's just not talked about enough. So now, if I go back here and do the wrap weight and length, and then the shaft weight as 11.3, my original build, yeah, so definitely need a heavier point. So the 175s, let's do 165. It's right at 9%. So 165. Okay. 175. And let's just do 185. I'm rounding, obviously. Oh, okay. We can go 200. Just over 11. I want to stay on 190. Sure. 190. So those are my FOCs. Now, what is the shortest arrow length I'm willing to do? I'm willing to do about a 26.5-inch arrow. It's about the shortest I'm willing to go. Now, if I repeat this test with the percentages, with that one variable changed for each arrow, where would I end up? So and assuming the same bushing weight, which is kind of vain, but it gets you close enough, I think. So point weight. Let's do shaft length on the X27. So we're going to make this 26.5. And I'll still use the wrap. Okay, so 26.5, we're at, did I calculate? Okay, so 26.5-inch arrow, we're at a 190 still. Just moved a few percents. That's good to know. So we can try the other ones. A 175. Yeah, it's still looking good. And then a 165. Okay. Now carbon might be different. So we have, take the wrap out, and then the shaft weight, go back to 9. And then the point weight, start with our 140. And then our arrow length is good, and calculate. 9.4. We could go a little lighter if we wanted to. This might be dramatic. 8.5%. Okay. I think everything will be about the same. So if I go just to 160, probably be about the same. Yeah, it's a little heavy. 160 is at 11.1. Cool. So, yeah, everything is about the same there. So now, that's my point weight range generally for getting within 9 to 11%. So on a X27, I'm going to be running between 165 to 190 grains to get a good FOC on that. But if the point weight itself is still kind of on the heavy side, if I feel like the arrow is just taking way too long to get to the target, that's where the super drives come in. And the super drives, to get the super drives in a really good spot, 140 to 160 is the way to go. I think 120 is probably a little excessive, but the 175 is definitely out of whack. So 150 is at 10%, it's right in the middle. I have everything I need to do to build those and try them out and potentially shoot them tonight and have something to shoot for a few days. I think that's a fair arrow build to make. So I'm going to begin on that and move on from there. So I'll catch you in the next segment.